Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. In an unexpected twist during the Sean Diddy Combs federal trial, as covered by Inner City Press, a bombshell moment unfolded. Kid Rock strode into the courtroom unannounced, without fanfare or entourage, clutching a dossier poised to disrupt the music industry's long-held silences. This wasn't about fame or feuds, it was about unveiling truths buried for years. With a single act, Rock upended the trial's trajectory, delivering revelations that left the gallery reeling and Diddy's defense scrambling. His testimony, centered on surveillance, hush tactics, and a recurring pattern of misconduct, threatened to dismantle an empire that believed itself untouchable. Federal courtrooms thrive on order, methodical pacing, scripted motions, and stringent security. Yet on the trial's seventh day, routine gave way to shock. At 11:12 a.m., the double doors swung open. Heads turned, expecting a court official or tardy juror, but instead they saw a figure in a sharp black suit, sunglasses on, gripping a hefty folder secured with a gold clasp. It was Kid Rock. Silent and resolute, he marched to the front row of the gallery and took a seat, his gaze fixed on the judge. Whispers erupted. Reporters scribbled furiously, the bailiff froze, and prosecutors exchanged wary looks. Diddy, caught mid-conversation with his attorney, locked eyes with Rock, his expression tightening, a moment one juror later likened to a balloon deflating in slow motion. Unlike Diddy's polished inner circle, Kid Rock had always been an outsider to the industry's elite. He shunned the glitzy after-parties and unwritten codes that silenced others. So when he produced that thick, official-looking folder, the room's attention sharpened. The judge, visibly taken aback but maintaining composure, inquired if Rock was linked to the prosecution's witness list. "I've got documents I've held onto for years," he said evenly. "It's time they were seen." What followed wasn't chaos or delay, it was a rare pause in procedure. After a brief sidebar, the judge permitted the folder to be submitted to the clerk, who placed it directly on her bench. For 12 tense minutes, the courtroom sat in near silence as she reviewed its contents page by page. When she finally looked up, her demeanor had shifted. "This will be admitted as evidence corroborating a pattern of behavior," she declared. The room pulsed with unspoken intensity. Something fundamental had changed, and Diddy's team knew it. The folder's contents defied all expectations. The evidence presented wasn't vague or speculative. It was precise, meticulously organized, and backed by verifiable details. These weren't blurry snapshots or untraceable claims. The documents included court-certified metadata corroborating every timeline entry, with at least 5 sworn affidavits from former security personnel, housekeepers, drivers, and personal assistants. Printed emails, travel logs, and incident reports from private security firms contracted by Diddy's team formed a compelling case. This wasn't rumor, it was a carefully constructed, time-stamped, and validated body of evidence. The first document shown to the jury was a 2017 incident report from a Miami estate manager recounting how a female guest was prevented from leaving a party, with security instructed via radio that she doesn't leave until he approves. The guest was identified as Cassie. Next came a screenshot of internal communications from a luxury hotel chain that regularly hosted Diddy's events, noting privacy restrictions for VIPs flagged for prior incidents. Though names were redacted, the implications were unmistakable. These weren't typical gatherings. The third piece shattered the jury's calm. A sworn affidavit from a former audio technician who worked Diddy's 2016 tour. He described surveillance monitors in a private compound's basement, displaying feeds from multiple rooms during private events, all meticulously logged and time-stamped. He claimed the recordings were stored on external drives managed solely by a named staff member. The technician provided specifics: camera model numbers, network storage details, and exact dates of drive updates. Cassie's legal team remained composed, nodding as the evidence aligned with their prior claims. Diddy's attorneys, however, scrambled through their files, searching for any procedural defense, but the evidence was already admitted. The jury was rapt, no longer just hearing Cassie's account, but seeing its chilling, documented reality. Kid Rock remained stoic throughout, hands clasped, silent and unsmiling, his focus unwavering. After a brief recess, the judge reconvened the court and addressed him directly. "Mr. Ritchie, if you're prepared to give a statement, the court is ready to hear it." Kid Rock rose without notes or hesitation. "I'm not here for attention," he began. "I'm here because the truth has been buried under awards and billion-dollar facades for far too long." He explained how, over years, he'd received messages, emails, and late-night calls from people too scared to speak out. At first, the stories seemed unbelievable, but their consistency, same details, same fear, same pain from different voices, pointed to a pattern. "I've toured with heroes and villains," he said. "I've looked the other way more than I should, but when I saw Cassie in that interview, glancing over her shoulder, I recognized that fear. It's real." He revealed that the folder's contents came to him over 5 years from anonymous sources, former staff, and one guilt-ridden friend. He verified each piece before passing it to Cassie's legal team, promising to testify if needed. "And here I am," he concluded. Kid Rock continued, his voice steady but charged. "I'm not here to play savior," he said. "I'm here because I'm done watching this industry destroy people and call it creativity." His gaze locked onto Diddy, unflinching. "You don't intimidate me. Never have." The courtroom fell silent, every juror hanging on his words. As he took his seat, the trial's atmosphere shifted irrevocably. This wasn't just testimony, it was a turning point, and Kid Rock had struck the first decisive blow. The prosecution pivoted to a witness list unlocked by Rock's testimony. Witness number 9, Cynthia M., a former personal chef employed at Diddy's Los Angeles mansion retreats from 2016 to 2019, took the stand. She didn't speculate, she brought evidence, payment records, kitchen delivery logs, and schedules that aligned precisely with the nights Cassie alleged she was confined, coerced, or prepped for private entertainment events. When asked to describe the household's atmosphere, Cynthia spoke deliberately, her unease palpable. "There were strict rules," she said. "You couldn't look Cassie in the eye unless she looked at you first. You couldn't speak without Mr. Combs's permission. Once I asked if she wanted avocado in her salad. He overheard and someone else finished my shift. I never spoke to her again." She revealed a chilling system of color codes used by staff to describe Cassie's emotional state. Green for calm and compliant, yellow for crying or unsteady, red for canceling a party. "Red was rare," she said. "Someone always fixed her before it got to that." Her words sent a chill through the courtroom, jurors scribbling frantically. The prosecution presented Cynthia's digital logs of kitchen deliveries during these gatherings with Cassie's name redacted and replaced with VIP. Cynthia recounted a haunting moment. At 1 a.m., Cassie entered the kitchen, tears streaming, clutching a bathrobe, and whispered, "Can I use the landline? I can't find my phone. I think he took it again." Fearing repercussions, Cynthia refused. 2 weeks later, she was replaced. "I left because it didn't feel like a job anymore," she said. "It felt like being complicit in something I couldn't stomach." After Cynthia's testimony, the prosecution introduced Exhibit 78B, surveillance footage timestamps and access logs from 3 of Diddy's properties. Initially provided by an anonymous source, these were authenticated through chain of custody records tied to a retired security consultant formerly employed by Bad Boy Entertainment. One entry read, January 5, 2018, Freak Room 2, feed adjusted at 8:42 p.m. Visitor ID matched to Cassie Ventura, no exit log until 2:03 a.m. Jurors leaned forward, gripped by the term Freak Room, previously only whispered in blogs and cryptic ex-artist interviews. Now it was documented fact. The prosecution clarified that Freak Room referred to guest bedrooms in Diddy's Miami and Los Angeles estates, equipped with dim ceiling lights, floor-to-ceiling mirrors, hidden cameras, and two-way glass. Allegedly, recordings from these rooms were encrypted, stored in external vaults, and cataloged under pseudonyms to obscure their contents. Kid Rock had played a pivotal role in exposing this. 2 weeks earlier, he'd handed prosecutors a USB drive containing partial directory files labeled Baker House Sessions, Studio 19 visits, and VIP 1 RAW. Some files were corrupted or encrypted, but audio technicians testified they'd recovered critical metadata confirming the file's creation dates and locations. In a decrypted audio clip played privately for the court, a male voice, described by the technician as consistent with known recordings, detailed arrangements for one of these sessions. The evidence was damning, and Kid Rock's contribution had been the key to unlocking it. In the decrypted audio, a voice identified as consistent with Diddy's known recordings was heard saying, "She's not going anywhere. Take her phone and close the mirror." The room reference matched the January 5th, 2018 surveillance log for Freak Room 2. Diddy's legal team objected, arguing the evidence was inconclusive, but the judge overruled, stating its relevance to the pattern of behavior was undeniable. That ruling was pivotal. Kid Rock sat motionless as the prosecution displayed a timeline on screen, connecting Cassie's lawsuit allegations to the recordings, guest logs, and time-stamped footage from the USB drive. This was no longer just testimony. It was a meticulously constructed case dismantling Diddy's defense. The courtroom's atmosphere shifted further with the next witness, a former recording engineer from Bad Boy's New York studio, identified only as Dave. He spoke plainly. There was a culture of silence. See something? You didn't. Hear something? You didn't. Unless you wanted to be out of a job by week's end. Dave recalled a night in early 2019 when Cassie arrived at the studio, visibly distressed though unscheduled. She was ushered into a side room labeled Green Room 2, a term used in internal memos for a heavily surveilled space. When an assistant asked Diddy if Cassie should be sent home, he replied, "She leaves when I say she's done." Dave had recorded the exchange on his phone. When asked if he still had the file, he nodded. "I emailed it to myself from a personal account. Didn't trust cloud storage." The courtroom was hushed as the prosecution played a cleaned-up version of the audio. Diddy's voice, sharp, commanding, and cold, echoed unmistakably. Juror number 4 visibly flinched, closing their eyes. In a bold move, the prosecution recalled Kid Rock to the stand, this time as a character witness to contextualize his involvement. "I had nothing to gain and everything to lose," he said. "But when a system like this stays buried for so long, the only way to stop it is to call it out." He emphasized that this wasn't about canceling anyone. It was about dismantling a culture that silenced people with threats to their careers. His gaze swept the room, not lingering on Diddy, but taking in the lawyers, the gallery, the jury. "I don't care what it costs me," he said. "What I saw still haunts me." As he stepped down, no defense rebuttal could undo the weight of his words. Diddy, once untouchable, now appeared as a man whose empire was fracturing. By the day's 7th segment, gasps and outrage had given way to stunned silence as the courtroom grappled with the scale of the evidence. The prosecution wasn't just targeting Diddy's actions, they were exposing the infrastructure that enabled them. Kid Rock had provided the roadmap. The next exhibit introduced was a set of documents from Shadow Entertainment, a defunct shell company tied to Bad Boy subsidiaries. It had no website, no public releases, no online presence, just one purpose: paying off staff at Diddy's private events. Ledgers listed payments to event planners, caterers, and safety escorts, all bound by NDAs and confidentiality agreements through Shadow. Some contracts included unsettling clauses like attendee silence shall be enforced under penalty of forfeiture, and physical presence in estate spaces constitutes consent to audio and video recording. Kid Rock, recalled for clarification, testified that he first encountered Shadow through anonymous tax records sent by a fired accountant who'd asked too many questions. "At first, I didn't know what I was looking at," he said, holding up a tax statement. "But the deeper I dug, the clearer it became. Dozens of people were paid to observe but never speak." He highlighted a $12,000 payment labeled equipment sanitation and a $9,000 entry for session supervision, both tied to dates matching Cassie's testimony. These records weren't just receipts, they were threads in a web of control, now unraveling before the jury. Sonia Lane's testimony detailed her role in preparing for Diddy's exclusive private events. painting a chilling picture that left the jury visibly uneasy. To underscore the systemic nature of the allegations, the prosecution introduced a final piece of evidence, a subpoenaed internal HR memo from Bad Boy Enterprises. It instructed employees to steer clear of personal interactions with VIP guests, particularly during red zone weekends, described as times of heightened privacy and executive authority. This wasn't just about Diddy, it exposed a corporate framework designed to insulate him. Kid Rock, with nothing but a folder and a microphone, had blown the lid off this carefully constructed system. By the afternoon recess, the courtroom's dynamic had shifted dramatically. Diddy's defense team appeared deflated, their arguments reduced to flimsy procedural objections, most of which the judge dismissed. The jury was fully engrossed, their focus unyielding. Then came an unforeseen witness, Sonia Lane, a former executive producer for a 2015 MTV special featuring Diddy. After nearly a decade of silence, she was spurred by Kid Rock's testimony to reach out to the prosecution that morning. The judge permitted her to testify. Lane recounted a shoot at Diddy's New York penthouse where Cassie was scheduled for a brief appearance. She arrived looking exhausted, unwell, and emotionally distant. Diddy abruptly dismissed several crew members, stating he didn't want anyone disrupting the vibe. He then locked the doors for nearly 45 minutes. When asked what happened when they reopened, Lane locked eyes with the jury and said, "Cassie came out in tears. He walked out with a smirk." Her words landed heavily. One juror dropped their pen, another's fists tightened. Kid Rock, seated in the gallery, remained still, but his influence reverberated throughout the room. Diddy's attorney requested a recess to review Lane's unexpected testimony, but the judge was resolute. "This court has shown ample patience. We continue," she ruled. Diddy's once charismatic presence had faded, his lips pressed tight, his gaze empty. The man who once dominated red carpets and major stages now seemed adrift, facing an uncertain future. Before the court adjourned, the judge granted Kid Rock a rare opportunity to make a closing statement, recognizing his cooperation and prior testimony. He stood slowly, straightened his suit, and stepped to the gallery center. "I thought I'd be brushed off as some brash rocker with a vendetta," he said. "Maybe that's partly true, but what I've seen, what I know, it couldn't stay locked in my head any longer." He paused, then added, "People will ask why I'm here, why I care. It's simple. This concerns everyone." His words, unadorned and resolute, left an indelible mark, unchallenged by any defense response. Kid Rock continued, his voice steady but piercing. "When the powerful exploit the vulnerable," he said, nodding toward Cassie. "That woman stayed silent for years, believing no one would take her side against a man who held the world in his hands." He took a deep breath. "I'm here to say, we believe you. I believe you. And judging by this courtroom today, a lot of others do too." As he sat down, the room remained still. No applause, no cheers, just a collective gaze turning toward Diddy. For the first time, his defiance was gone, replaced by a flicker of fear. The court recessed for the day, but outside, the world was already reacting. History had been made. By dawn the next morning, headlines exploded. Kid Rock exposes Diddy's secrets. Hollywood reels from trial bombshell. This was no mere tabloid storm. Something fundamental had shifted. Within hours, the trial's impact reached Washington, D.C., where lawmakers called for scrutiny of entertainment industry NDAs and power dynamics. Senator Lisa Donnelly, speaking on MSNBC, declared, "This goes beyond one artist or one victim. It's about a culture that's thrived in secrecy for too long." By midday, 4 prominent artists publicly distanced themselves from Diddy. One longtime collaborator posted a cryptic Instagram statement. "In light of recent revelations, I'm pausing all professional ties and reassessing past collaborations." The financial fallout was swift. A major streaming platform quietly removed all Diddy-produced content for internal review, and a national brand that once featured him in ads erased his presence and suspended their partnership indefinitely. The most poignant moment, however, unfolded online. A resurfaced fan-recorded interview from years earlier, largely overlooked at the time, gained traction. In it, Cassie was asked what advice she'd give young women entering the music industry. Her response, soft and haunting, now carried chilling weight. Trust your instincts. Don't let the glamour blind you. Not every door you're offered is safe. The world was finally listening. As Diddy left the courthouse that evening, flanked by stoic security and a barrage of camera flashes, he was silent. No words, no gestures, no glance upward. His empire wasn't just crumbling, it was being systematically dismantled by truth, testimony, and the courage of one man who chose to speak when silence was the safer path. Kid Rock.